The Financial Literacy and Education Commission is pleased to be in Atlanta to discuss workplace financial education as a part of a broader strategy focus of starting early. On behalf of the Commission, I would like to welcome you today to the hearing, and I would also like to remind everyone that today's webcast is being recorded and will be available on the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's website. At this time, I would like to thank our local host, the Georgia Consortium for Personal Financial Literacy, for being an excellent partner in developing today's hearing, and invite their Executive Director, Nancy Schwartz-Miller, to the stage to begin our proceedings.
Thank you, Meredith. And on behalf of the consortium, I just want to thank FLEC for choosing Atlanta and coming here for your workplace financial education hearing. We have very active businesses, organizations, agencies, nonprofits, and individuals here that have been active in financial literacy for a long time, and I know that they're going to get a lot out of this hearing, and I hope everyone does. I'd also want to let you know, while I see many, many familiar faces, there's some of you who may not know the consortium. So just to give you a very quick overview, the consortium has been active in financial literacy education since its founding in 1997. And our goals include raising public awareness and connecting the financial needs within the community with the educational resources within the community. And also developing an educational network of not only businesses and agencies, but nonprofits and individuals. One of our most important goals, however, is to network and foster relationships between existing groups to really tackle this problem of financial literacy. We always say that there's a lot of room in the sandbox for a lot of players, and there is. This is a big issue and a big problem. So we are thrilled for FLEC and for the Consumer Financial Protection Board to have given us this opportunity to be a local host and to partner for this meeting. So we thank you. On the resource table outside, you'll find a whole flyer about the consortium, and it goes over all of our goals and our vision, part of our white paper, and you'll also see upcoming events. And one particular event I'd like to call your attention to is on March 27th, we'll be at the Capitol, and we will be there with the governor for the proclamation of Financial Literacy Month. And we're thrilled about that. The exact time and room location is yet to be announced. So if you're interested in that, by all means, let us know. We welcome everyone's involvement and support of the work within the Georgia Consortium. And at this time, I'd like to introduce the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Consumer Policy for the U.S. Department of Treasury, Melissa Coiday.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. It's afternoon, right? It's great to be out of DC, I have to say. I said this once before when we went to Madison, Wisconsin. So thanks, everybody, for being here. It really is. It's wonderful to be a part of this conversation, and I want to thank many of my colleagues, both in Washington and outside of Washington, who have helped to put this event together. We are convening this meeting as part of the Financial Literacy and Education Commission. I'm assuming many of you in this room know what this body is, but for those of you who don't, it is a body of 22 federal agencies and entities who've come together around improving Americans' financial knowledge and financial capabilities. The commission was chartered by Congress in order to coordinate the activities across the federal government and to work with other partners like many of you in this room towards that endeavor. The Treasury Department has responsibility as executive director for this body, and we work very closely with these 22 federal agencies, and in particular with our vice chair in the CFPB. Director Cordray is the vice chair. He's always with us, which has always put a smile on our faces, and his team are really important partners with us in the work that we're trying to do here. Over the last year and a half, we decided we really needed to hone our energies and make sure that all of these federal agencies that were sort of rowing our oars in the same direction. And so we decided to focus our efforts really looking at the financial needs and the financial knowledge of young people, young Americans across the country. Whether they are children learning basic math as well as economics, all the way through college kids who are making really important and very long implication decisions about how they're going to pay for college and where they're going to go, as well as to young people who are entering the workforce and may not be attentive to the fact that starting early for savings, both for sort of the shorter term needs, home ownership, but also longer term retirement goals, will benefit tremendously from the effect of compound interest. So I think we've made some real headway as a part of our strategic focus on starting early. The topic of today's meeting, as many of you know, is really around how do we take advantage of the workplace. This is of great importance, and it is critical to our endeavors around focusing on young people through our FLEC focus. I have no doubt that our conversation today is going to provide a lot of good ideas and also a lot of energy in order to advance the workplace financial education efforts that we endeavor to do, but we endeavor to do with you. So I want to stop and take a step back and just sort of pause being here on behalf of the administration. There's no question our economy is coming back. Businesses have created 8 million new jobs over the past 4 years, and unemployment rate is the lowest it's been in the past 5 years. Housing is rebounding, manufacturing is on the upswing, and we're seeing our deficits being cut by more than half. Because of the resiliency of those of us in this room and Americans across the country, as well as the resiliency and the endeavor of businesses in our economy overall, we are in a much stronger position today than many of us imagined we'd be a few years ago. Nevertheless, despite these significant signs of recovery, decades of economic changes have resulted, as we know too, in millions of families living on the financial edge. Many middle-class Americans are worrying about the ability of their children to achieve the American dream, to attain college, to access a home. And many low-income Americans see fewer paths towards a greater financial future for themselves and their families. The organization, I think many of you know CFED, a nonprofit based out of Washington, D.C., recently quantified this fragility with a term, liquid asset poverty. These are households without sufficient net worth to subsist at the poverty level for 3 months in the absence of income. CFED concluded that more than 40% of American households would be unable to sustain themselves at the poverty level if something interrupted their current income, such as a job loss or a medical emergency. This means that families don't have the cushion to withstand a substantial change in their expenses, whether that's a car breaking down or an unexpected emergency expense, without taking on additional debt. 40%. The administration has been working hard on a number of policy changes as well as practical solutions for trying to help families so that they can earn more, save, and effectively manage in the economy. And not just now, but also for their futures. Beyond the challenges in managing short-term money constraints, families without savings cushions are less likely to plan for the future. They're less likely to save for their kids' education, as well as to save for home ownership and retirement. And thus, they're less likely to seize what really are these ladders of opportunity in order to earn more and provide for a better life. One point of focus for all of us has been higher education, and we all realize that's a key to economic mobility. So over the past 4 years, the administration has taken a number of really important steps to make college more affordable. The president lowered the interest rate on student loans. He reformed the student loan system to eliminate subsidies and channel those savings back into funding for students. He's increased the maximum Pell Grant amount by more than $900, and he created the American Opportunity Tax Credit to make college more affordable for millions of students and families. The administration has also made it possible for many borrowers to cap their student loan repayment at 10% of their income. And this is obviously a very important step in this time when people are making their way back into the workforce. They may not be making significant amounts of money as they're making their way in, yet they still do have these student loan debts. So capping how much that monthly payment in order to make that monthly payment manageable is a really important action that we have taken. The President has also announced a new initiative to encourage schools to come up with innovative ways like expanding online courses in order to begin to lower the cost of higher education. There's nevertheless more that needs to be done. To help students manage their debt once they graduate, we have, as I said, significantly expanded these income-based repayment plan options for federal student loan borrowers, and we've taken a number of steps to increase awareness about these options for borrowers. So I hope you take this as information that you can share with students and others who may need access to these types of repayment options. Last month, in our effort to get the word out, we at the Treasury Department partnered with the Department of Education, and we have begun a partnership with Intuit, where we are messaging through the TurboTax platform information about these repayment options, as well as direct access to the Department of Education's repayment calculator, so that more people are learning about these repayment options. So managing debt is an important piece of this, and it's critical, but it is also not sufficient. And I think we realize that, and that is in part why we're here today. The financial capability needs of Americans are so diverse, and we should consider how to deliver an array of those options that help Americans manage the complexity of their financial lives, provide access to safe and affordable financial products and services, as well as to inform and empower individuals to manage their finances successfully. One area where better options are needed is in helping Americans plan for and save for the long term. And that's why, as I suspect many of you have heard, President Obama has directed the Treasury Department to create the MyRA, and I did say that correctly. Everybody take note how this is pronounced. This does stand for My Retirement Account. This was an initiative that was announced by the President in the State of the Union address last month. And the MyRA product will be a simple, safe, and affordable starter retirement account that we believe can help millions of Americans begin to save for retirement and start saving now. The MyRA product will be offered via a familiar Roth IRA account, and savers will benefit from principal protection so that the account balance never goes down. The security in the account is a savings bond, and like all savings bonds, it is backed by the U.S. Treasury Department, the U.S. government. Savers will be able to open the MyRA with as little as $25, and we've put the threshold in terms of ongoing contributions to as little as $5, because we realize the ability to save, even if it's a little bit, starting out early is so critical for longer-term savings. MyRA will allow workers to start to build a nest egg and to give people the mechanism to start saving for their retirement through their hard work. We believe this product will be particularly valuable for young workers who might be working multiple jobs, part-time, or as they're striving to move up the economic ladder and develop habits that ultimately will have long-term payoffs. Options like MyRA and income-based repayment plans are important, but we also know there is more we need to do. We also need to make sure that Americans, especially young Americans, at the start of their careers, have the tools that they need to help them build their financial knowledge. Evidence shows that many young people lack the financial knowledge needed to make sound financial decisions. Last year, the National Financial Capability Study found that young adults reported they don't feel prepared to address these challenges. Only 30% of young adults rated their financial skills as very strong. The survey found that only 36% of young adults ages 18 to 34 had been offered financial education, and only 22% had taken a financial education course. Certainly, the government can and does encourage saving and investing, and we clearly do encourage financial education. But we realize that we can't go it alone, and it is critical that we have partnerships and we think about leveraging the employment as a venue and an opportunity to get sound information and advice to Americans across the country. So I am getting the I'm out of time signal, so I'm going to cut my remarks here because we have a great panel today. I have no doubt we're going to learn a lot that we will be able to take back to what we're doing across the federal government and working with partners like you in order to lift the financial knowledge of Americans across the country. So it's great to be here. Thank you. And I am supposed to introduce Rich Cordray, who needs no introduction. Dr. Cordray.
Thank you. Thank you first to Melissa Coide. I'm very pleased to work alongside her on the Financial Literacy and Education Commission, where she leads the Department of Treasury's efforts. And I want to thank all of you here for your interest in helping hardworking consumers achieve financial peace of mind, which is a big part of what we're looking for. I firmly believe that employers who provide financial education in the workplace are not only doing the right thing, they're also doing the smart thing for their employees and their businesses. The recent financial crisis and the deep recession that followed in its wake delivered a devastating blow to American households. Many lost their jobs, many lost their homes, many are still struggling to pick up the pieces. People have been shaken in their deeply held belief that if they work hard and behave responsibly, they will get ahead in life and pass on a higher standard of living to their children. Yet even now, 5 years after the crisis, too many Americans still lack the tools to navigate through the often turbulent and complex waters of our financial system. Every day at the Consumer Bureau, we hear from people who lament the choices they made, often expressing anguished regret that they did not know more about the risks involved at the time they made key financial decisions. Those of us here today are leaders within our own businesses and organizations, and we have a clear opportunity to stand up and make a difference on these issues. We can insist that from this day forward, both the public sector and the private sector in the United States will commit themselves to the concept that American citizens need to be fully capable of economic self-governance, just as we expect them to be able to participate on a full and equal terms in our democratic system of government. For a society built on a foundation of free and responsible individuals operating within a free market system, nothing less will do. Research shows what intuition suggests, that particularly in the wake of the recession, financial distress has been widespread among the American workforce. In recent surveys conducted by PricewaterhouseCoopers, more than half of all workers say that they have been financially distressed. Many of you here today have seen this with your own eyes because you're the ones a coworker turns to in distress for a salary advance or a hardship withdrawal from his or her 401k plan. You know and see how that financial distress negatively affects their families and their work. It reduces productivity, it takes away from their focus and commitment to the job. It increases absenteeism and may undermine their health. 1/3 of workers admit they've spent time in the office worrying about money or even directly dealing with issues of their own personal finances. Workers will be more likely to avoid financial distress if they're better positioned to manage their own finances. As employers, we can play a critical role in this effort by implementing practices in the workplace that strengthen financial capability. It is possible to start out small with little or no cost by providing a few basic offerings, such as using direct deposit to encourage savings. Many employers already offer direct deposit, but they can make it easier for employees to allocate their paychecks across spending, savings, and investment accounts. And employers could do more to help employees prepare for their long-term futures by educating them more about their options with 401k plans, IRAs, and now the brand new Treasury vehicle that is just being unveiled that Melissa Coide mentioned to promote personal savings known as MyRA. Appropriately, we're celebrating America Saves Week this week. A 2013 survey revealed that only about half of Americans reported good savings habits. Of those surveyed who were not retired, only half of them were saving for retirement with a 401k or other similar plan. Employers are well positioned to help their employees carry out the theme of America Saves Week. Set a goal, make a plan, save automatically. Many employers already enroll their employees automatically in retirement accounts, but they could move toward a higher percentage of pay as the auto-enrollment default choice to encourage more retirement savings. Employers could also provide more options, including default options, that automatically increase the amount contributed to retirement plans over time as pay increases. Along with these types of offerings, employers can make educating their employees and helping them develop sounder financial strategies a priority from their first day in the office or on the shop floor. We want to see more organizations offer financial education benefits and saving options to their employees. We also want them to be much more conscious of the need to ensure that more employees understand and utilize the benefits made available to them. Employers offering financial education and savings programs should organize them in one central location so that employees know how they can easily access resources and assistance. Strategic awareness campaigns can promote positive financial behavior and increase employee participation in benefit programs. Employers with an open enrollment season for choosing insurance benefits could use that time to promote their financial education and savings programs as well. This is a sensible part of a modernized workplace benefits package. For those employers who want to go beyond the basics, they can leverage the key moments in an employee's life, such as marriage, the birth of a child, or buying a home, to deliver financial skills training at the right time. Good decisions at these crucial times exert a disproportionate influence on the trajectory of people's financial futures. And employers are already there every step of the way. Companies get the call immediately when a worker has a new spouse or a baby to sign up for insurance. Those are teachable moments where the person's financial identity is changing and the need for new information and new skills is heightened. Those employers who want to be even more innovative in their approach to employee financial fitness can expand their wellness programs to include financial wellness. After all, money is one of the top sources of stress in and out of the workplace. Programs that help employees manage and mitigate this stress are just as important to protecting employee health as standard programs that coach them to get in shape and quit smoking. Some employers have already begun to focus on the need to help employees build up an emergency savings account to fall back on when a car breaks down or a relative falls ill. Employers can also offer savings incentive programs by matching a certain percentage of the employee's savings. This can be a good strategy to increase employee retention or to provide non-permanent benefits. This week is a great time to start thinking about these programs, but we would like to see them implemented all year round. Saving now can help keep consumers out of trouble and help them achieve long-term stability by establishing and meeting their financial goals. At the Consumer Bureau, we believe in leading by example. We're a fairly new organization, but this past year we launched an entire program focused on providing our employees with a solid foundation for their financial lives. Based on what we've learned from studies about financial decision-making in the workplace, we're striving to build a set of best practices for our own employees. We've sought to increase employees' access to retirement and benefits information through such efforts as planning seminars and benefits counseling. We've also contracted with a financial planning company so that our employees can access services ranging from debt management to tax and estate planning to helping with paying off student loans. We hope to learn from all of you here today how we can improve our own efforts at the CFPB. Many of you are leaders in this field, and I look forward to hearing what you're doing. I'm sure your efforts can serve as a terrific example for other employers who want to enable their employees to prosper both at home and at work. Every day, outstanding businesses deliver high-quality and cost-effective products where and when their customers need them. By the same token, their employees need beneficial and cost-effective help with their financial lives. I'm convinced that the leaders in this room can appreciate and meet the challenge in order to find a way to help this nation get this important job done. By improving the financial lives of our citizens, we can enable them to contribute more in every sphere, including the workplace. Thank you. And now I would like to introduce Phyllis Borsey, who serves as the Assistant Secretary of Labor for the Employee Benefit Security Administration, and who has been an outstanding partner in working with myself and my colleagues at the Consumer Bureau. Phyllis.
Well, thank you, Director Caudry, for that kind introduction, and thank you, Melissa, for inviting us to participate today. I know we're going to hear a lot of important information, so I want to keep my own remarks brief because I want to give you more time to tell us about what you're doing in this area of workplace education. You know, as Rich mentioned, I lead an agency within the U.S. Department of Labor that's charged with educating and assisting the 141 million Americans covered by approximately 700,000 private retirement plans, 2.5 million group health plans, and about 2.5 million of other kinds of employee benefit plans like life insurance and disability, et cetera. So we also work closely with employers, plan sponsors, labor unions, and all members of the Employee Benefits Committee because we share this common goal of making sure that the benefits our employees receive are good benefits, are understandable benefits, and are appreciated by our employees. So my agency is committed basically to assuring the security of retirement, health, and these other employee benefits of America's workers and their families. We accomplish this mission basically in a couple of ways. Probably the most noticeable way that we do this, because we're always under the microscope, is we issue regulations. Regulations enable us to deal with institutional or system-wide issues, and so we try to educate and assist both employers who have to comply with these regulations and service providers and the workers themselves. The next thing that we do is we do outreach. And we participate in events like this. We have people throughout our regions who go and deal with people in their communities, who try to assist them in better understanding their benefits, working with employers to better communicate so that their employees get the best bang for their buck. And obviously, the most, in my mind, in some cases, the most important thing we do is enforce the law. It's really important for us to do outreach and try to assist employers and other plan sponsors and service providers in understanding what their responsibilities are. But compliance assistance always only goes so far. So people need to know that in the rare cases, and believe me, they are rare cases, where employers, plan sponsors, service providers are not doing the right thing by their employees, we're prepared to go after them and enforce the law. Part of our outreach function is the information we have on our website. And you can go to our website because our website contains many publications and archived webcasts in which we explain the various rules and regulation, not just in the pension area, but in the health area and various other benefits. Our materials, which are, by the way, the written materials are available in both English and Spanish. They focus on things like retirement savings, retirement adequacy, retirement readiness, and provide tools for consumers, including calculators, to better understand their retirement benefits. A lot of this is designed to supplement the work that employers do, because many employers do a really fine job in this area. And in addition to the consumer compliance tools, we also have a special emphasis on reaching out to employers, particularly small employers, who are struggling to decide whether they want to provide benefits to their employees and how best to do that. And we often do outreach activities designed to deal with small employers or other employers in conjunction with our colleagues at the Internal Revenue Service and Treasury. And our retirement program outreach we do not just with our colleagues at the IRS, but also with our colleagues at Social Security. And we have recently, in the past couple of years, begun doing retirement forums, such as this, with our colleagues at the Consumer Bureau as well. Our enforcement authority comes from a law called the Employee Retirement Income Security Act of 1974, ERISA, which, in case you're ever on Jeopardy, Mr. Director, happens to be, here's a little trivia, was the first law that new President Jerry Ford signed when he succeeded Richard Nixon in 1974.
Thanks, so I've been looking to improve my.
Exactly. So let me just tell you a little bit about what our role with the FLEC. I was very excited when the FLEC decided that it would focus this year on the theme of starting early, because this is something that I obviously care passionately about. It's never too early to start educating people and never too early to encourage people to save. In the workplace area, this is particularly important. Most employers do some sort of an orientation for their new employees, and this is the perfect opportunity to begin to educate them about the important benefits that are provided and the need to take advantage of them. I have to just tell you one little story. Probably about 2 years ago, I was testifying before the Senate Aging Committee on a hearing that had to do with lifetime income and the need to encourage people to save. And Senator Franken, Al Franken from Minnesota, was asking me questions, and he said, so wouldn't you agree that we need to start educating people about savings early, like when they're in high school? And I said, I can't believe I said this to a senator. I said, absolutely not. We need to start much earlier than that. And without missing a beat, he said, you're right, we need to start in elementary school. And he just kept on going. It's really important to start early. And whether we focus, as we are today, on workplace education or education in any other way, starting early, developing a culture of savings is really, really important. So let me tell you a little bit about the Early Career Committee that we are privileged to head. We are studying financial education for the people who are starting out in their careers. As federal employees, we have an incredible number of employees that we can tap into. And we have lots that we can learn. So what we've been doing over the past few months is going essentially on a fact-finding mission. We've reached out to every one of the 22 agencies that are part of the FLEC, and we've asked their benefits departments, what are they doing to educate new employees? The point of this is to gather information and to put together our own, if you will, best practice list. But part of what we're trying to do here today is get from you what you think the best practices are for educating employees. And when we finish our project dealing with the federal employees, we're obviously going to share the information that we have gathered about best practices. But what we've learned is that there's many ways that you can educate employees, and employees learn in very, very different ways. It's really interesting because most of the beginning employees today have different learning styles than their parents. They focus more on social media, but what's really interesting to me is the conventional wisdom you see is that young employees want to get everything online. But really, reading about your 401k statement on your iPhone, we don't find a lot of students who want to do that. We don't find a lot of young people who want to do it. They want to have access through electronic media, but they actually are more conventional in the ways that they want it delivered. So not only is our project designed on trying to figure out the best ways to focus on the substance, to give people the tools that they need, but to also focus on the way that it's best to deliver those types of information. This hearing is going to help us understand better the experiences you've had and maybe be able in a dialogue to share with you some of the things we've learned. So I'm really excited to be here today. I'm looking forward to the hearing, and I'll just stop at that. So thank you very much.
Thank you to our opening speakers, Director Cordray, Deputy Assistant Secretary Coide, and my boss, Assistant Secretary Phyllis Borzi. At this time, I would like to introduce Dr. Catherine Sauer, Financial Education Program Director at the University of Colorado. Dr. Sauer coordinates and supports personal financial literacy programming and resources for all students, faculty, and staff on the university's 4 campuses and system administration office. A more expansive bio of Dr. Sauer and the rest of our panelists and speakers today is available in the list of bios on the CVent registration website. Dr. Sauer will frame our discussion for the remainder of our time together today. Dr. Sauer.
Thank you, Meredith, and thank you all for having me. I'd like to offer the business case for workplace financial education. The economic turmoil of the past 5 years has underscored the importance of personal financial literacy for all individuals. While many organizations were working hard in this arena even prior to the recession, the topic has since made its way to center stage. Hardly a day passes without a consumer financial statistic being reported in the news. Just last week, it was reported total household indebtedness rose by 2.1% in the fourth quarter of last year, the fastest increase since 2007. The issue is increasingly being addressed for the nation's youth. 36 states have financial literacy curriculum standards in K-12 schools, and 5 require student testing. Colleges and universities across the country are offering or requiring financial education programming. But 2/3 of the US population is over age 25. These individuals will not be benefiting from the efforts to educate the youth. However, because 80% of individuals aged 25 to 54 are currently participating in the labor force, there's an opportunity for employers to step in. It's a natural fit, really, financial education as part of the workplace. Of the 7 major areas of personal finance, income, taxes, saving, investing, giving, spending, and protecting, 4 are directly touched by the vast majority of employers, namely income, tax withholding, investing in the form of retirement accounts, and insurance products like health, life, or disability. Additionally, many workplaces encourage participation in charitable giving campaigns, and many firms also offer direct deposit of paychecks into savings accounts. Taking on the additional responsibility of providing financial education to employees means placing new demands on company resources. Both personnel time and funds are needed. Given that financial education imposes real costs on employers, why then should they consider it? I'll focus today on 3 reasons. It reduces presenteeism, has implications for workforce management, and it positions employers for the impending demographic shift in the workforce. It won't surprise you to hear that the number of people describing their financial well-being as good or high has been dropping. An annual survey reports this number was only 24% in 2012, which is down from 42% in 2004. And this is of, quote, serious concern given that financial distress negatively affects individuals, families, and the workplace. Additionally, 30 million American workers, which is roughly 1 in 4, claim they are seriously distressed and dissatisfied with their financial matters, and this spans across all income levels. Financial distress is strongly linked with presenteeism, which is the loss of workplace productivity resulting from health problems or personal issues. Even though the employee is physically present at work, they're unable to fully perform their work duties and are more likely to make mistakes at work. Some researchers have found that financial stress or concerns contribute significantly to presenteeism, more than health limitations, depression, or general anxiety, with nearly 40% reporting inability to fully concentrate on work due to personal financial issues. Other researchers have found that workers reporting more financial distress also report more presenteeism. One study finds 19% of respondents spent work time dealing with personal debt and credit issues. Human resource professionals confirm this is an issue in the workplace. When surveyed, the majority say their employees' personal financial challenges have some impact on work performance, and 1 in 5 claim the impact is large. 80% say their employees are faced with more personal financial challenges than 5 years ago. Ability to focus, contribution to stress, and overall productivity are the top 3 negative impacts of employees' personal financial challenges. If employees are distracted by financial concerns during their time at work, then there's a compelling case for employers to provide access to and encourage use of financial education, programming, and resources. Employee financial education can also be used as a tool for workforce management. If workers aren't confident in their retirement finances, they may delay leaving their jobs. 37% of workers age 55 and older are not currently saving for retirement. 1 in 5 say the age at which they expect to retire has increased in the past year. Reasons for postponing retirement are the poor economy, a lack of faith in Social Security or the government, and the inability to afford retirement. Additionally, high levels of debt are negatively correlated with retirement confidence. 80% of workers with major debt problems are either not too confident or not at all confident that they'll be able to live comfortably in retirement. 60% of workers classify their level of debt as a problem. Ensuring that employees receive access to a broad array of financial education resources may help abate this problem. Preparing for retirement is a process that takes several decades, but those years are no longer spent at a single employer. Today's younger workers can be expected to change jobs several times over the course of a career. The last employer for whom the employee works faces the task of transitioning that employee to retirement, regardless of the employee's retirement savings. When changing jobs, there are several options for the retirement account. Roll it over into another tax-qualified account, save it, leave it, or cash it out and spend it. In 2012, of those who received a lump sum distribution as part of a job separation, only 45% put that money back into tax-qualified savings. The likelihood of rolling over account is positively correlated with age, however. So employers should encourage and assist new hires, especially younger employees, with rolling over retirement accounts from previous employment. Because Generation Y is especially likely to change jobs every few years, they may be tempted to cash out their small balances. In this new era of mobile employees, employers can and should provide rollover information to their exiting employees. Of those who rolled over any portion, 94% rolled all of it over. I'll turn now to a demographic trend that will seriously impact employers: the growth of the so-called sandwich generation. Adults caring for their children, but also supporting their parents. Saving for retirement while supporting children isn't a new phenomenon. However, the number of adult children returning to live with parents is on the rise and adds complexity to this situation. 1 in 5 men aged 25 to 34 live with their parents. The figure is 1 in 10 for women of the same age. Parents providing financial support to their adult children, who are not college students, report a worsening of their own financial position. 26% report taking on more debt, 13% delayed a life event like taking a vacation or buying a new home, and 7% delayed retirement. The other challenge faced by the sandwich generation is their aging parents. 10,000 people turn 65 each day and will continue to do so through the year 2030. Of middle-aged adults with at least one parent 65 and older, 32% provide financial help to a parent in the last year. 42% of workers have provided care for an aging relative or friend in the past 5 years, and about half of the workforce expects to be providing elder care in the coming 5 years. Currently, 1 in 7 middle-aged adults is providing financial support to both an aging parent and a child. In terms of physical caregiving, the statistically average provider is an employed 49-year-old woman who cares for a parent at least 20 hours a week. Family care such as this can have negative effects on the caregiver's own financial situation and retirement security, as well as their physical and emotional health. Once caregiving has started, 60% of caregivers say that they make some sort of workplace accommodation, like going in late, leaving early, taking a leave of absence, or cutting hours to part-time. Caregiving increases stress both at home and also stress at work. employees who report they are caregivers are also at greater risk for negative health behaviors like smoking. Sandwich generation employees may be especially responsive to financial education opportunities provided during the workday, for example, seminars held over the lunch hour, and are grateful for the posting of thoroughly vetted financial education resources on the company website or intranet. In bringing comprehensive financial education into the workplace, many obstacles will be encountered and many objections will be raised. But given the financial realities faced by today's workers, it is a proposition that demands serious and thoughtful consideration. Thank you. And now we'll start our first panel. Panelists, please come to the stage. Michael Christ is a Vice President and Community Relations Officer in the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta's Public Affairs Department. In this role, he has strategic oversight for the 6th Federal Reserve District's corporate citizenship and economic and financial education programs. He also oversees the bank's outreach activities, the Monetary Museum and Tour Program, and the Knowledge and Information Management function. Christ, an economist, also leads the Atlanta Fed's South Point blog, which provides commentary and observations on regional economic topics.
You hopefully nobody will hold the fact that I'm an economist against me as we go forward, but it's a real pleasure to be here and to begin by introducing our first panel. To my immediate left is Yvonne Yancey, the Human Resources Commissioner from the City of Atlanta. Next to her is Michelle Glass, the Vice President of Education for ClearPoint Credit Counseling Solutions. Patty Patterson is the Regional Communications Director, Atlanta region for the Social Security Administration, and Bob Bideman, who is the Retirement Plan Manager for Southern Company. Thank you all very much for being with us today. Just to frame up this panel, I think our previous speaker did a great job of that, but you know, offering a financial education program in the workplace is really a great idea and a wonderful opportunity to really improve the quality of life of all our employees. What we're going to do today is explore some of the things that have been done in practice and really the things that have been done to promote financial education and really help employees make the best financial decisions for them and their families. So let's begin with the first question for discussion. Our framing speaker, Catherine Sauer, made a really great case, I thought, for the business rationale for providing a financial workplace education, financial education in the workplace. So maybe Bob and Yvonne, you can start by describing what really led you to provide that kind of program in your workplaces.
Sure. So can everybody hear me? I think our main focus was really on, we know that we offer, we constantly monitor what programs we're offering, and we make sure that those programs are market competitive. So getting talent is a key thing for any employer, right? So you want to make sure that the programs you offer are able to bring those people into the door, and we also want to retain those employees. Just to give you an idea, it usually takes about 7 years to get somebody that's fully technically able to do their job in the utility industry. So, we need to retain, not only get people in the door, but retain them once they come on board. But what we noticed was without financial education, we weren't getting a return on our investment. So we were spending money offering these programs. Did people really understand the value behind these programs? So when they were making a decision, so even, as you were talking about, we educate a lot of students about looking at offers. But when they look at an offer, are they just looking at how much money are you going to pay me, or all the other stuff that employers provide that has a dollar value associated with it? And I think that's one of the things, once we get people in the door, we focus on educating on all of the other things that we offer that really give you that financial soundness that you need. The second thing that we try and focus on a lot is really kind of making sure, and I think we highlighted on that, is even on the increased productivity, maintaining a high level of customer service. So we want our employees, when they come in the door to work each day, to be focused on delivering high quality, as every employer is. And in order to do that, you have to eliminate some of that stress. And so financial stress is obviously one thing, as well as wellness, right? So a lot of what we're trying to focus on with education is eliminating as much stress as possible from our employees.
I think what we found, similar to the talent management strategy, was that many of our employees were simply unaware of the benefits they had. Like most employers, we offered programs through our vendors who did workshops and set their little tent up, and people came to hear about their 401A or the defined benefit plan. But in the middle of a pension reform effort that was historic for the city, we really learned that our employees had no idea what they had. And so we really launched a product-neutral education at that point. Our vendors are great and they're wonderful partners, but sometimes they sell. And so we really wanted to create a program and vehicles that were neutral, that gave our employees an opportunity to talk about financial wellness in a different way. We have an umbrella program called Healthier You, which focuses on health and wellness, which also tackles financial wellness. And so we found, particularly during these difficult economic times, we had employees who were taking on additional responsibilities of other family members, other children, parents, et cetera, that they had not had before. There were significant financial strains, and that showed up in the workplace. And so we put together a curriculum in partnership with several organizations, including one with Bill Cheeks, who you'll hear from later, Credibility, and our vendors ultimately, to have a series of workshops to talk about really basic things. What is your credit score? Do you pay your mortgage? What are you doing if you don't pay your mortgage? Did you file your taxes? Things that are really very ground level to talk about where is your financial well-being. And then we built from that foundation on other things that are much more progressive, like what are you going to do when you retire? At the City of Atlanta, we do not participate in Social Security, so we only have two legs of the stool we often hear about. So it's really very critical that our employees understand what our benefits currently do, and also how to have a real strategy so that when they exit the city, which they often do, we have not so much of an issue of the 7-year training piece, but it costs $100,000 to train a police officer. But then they stay for 30 years, we hope. But they leave in their mid-50s to go on to Chapter 2, as we call it. Are they ready for what Chapter 2 looks like? And so that's really our impetus to ensure that our people understand what their options are.
Michelle and Patty, from your perspective as service providers, maybe you can share some insight into what you hear from employers when they reach out to you for the services that you provide along these lines.
Yeah. When employers reach out to us, it's a crisis situation. It's a situation where the person is in desperate need of some type of intervention, be it overwhelming debt, wage garnishments, whatever it may be. One of the particular areas of concern that we've helped to address is in our armed forces, where our servicemen and women are challenged with overwhelming debt and dealing with PCS, drawdowns, just several different things that affect them where their clearance could be at stake, which means that they will no longer be able to do their job, and they are at risk of being dismissed from the armed forces. So we have put together different programs that really personalize the education for them, that talks about how to deal with deployment, how to reconnect once you are faced with drawdown and you are forced to leave the armed forces. We work directly with our veteran service organizations, or VSOs, that have people that have gone through these situations. We write the curriculum. We have people who answer the phone who have been in the military service, and they are the ones that are the counselor that will work with those folks. So we really get down to the personalized level in helping folks, making sure that we're addressing their needs and that we understand what they're going through because we've done it ourselves.
From a Social Security perspective, we see our role and responsibility as education and helping employees and employers plan. As Yvonne mentioned, we are one part of, I'm sure many of you have heard, the three-legged stool, Social Security, your personal savings, and then your private pension. One of our most valuable financial planning tools that I think that we can offer employees is our Social Security statement. which is a yearly statement that shows employees what their earnings are. We want them to check to make sure that their earnings are reported correctly, but it also gives valuable estimates for what their retirement benefit would be, but also something that you don't always think about with Social Security, the disability and survivor protection that we offer. So this is something that we feel that we can offer to complete the package when an employer is dealing with their employees of what their benefits would be, and we feel we play an important role in that.
And what about technology? How have you all used technology to deliver these programs and other packages that you've put together to your employees? And what other opportunities do you think are out there as far as that goes? And I'll just toss that out to the group. Anybody feel like going first?
I think from our perspective, ClearPoint Credit Counseling Solution, formerly Credibility, what we've done
We'll get that
is-
straight before the end of the day.
What we've done is we've utilized a lot of different resources for online education. That's something we're a big proponent of. We have a system that we've implemented over the last 2 years called our Personalized Learning Program, which is a program or an online system that's a learning management system that really personalizes the education. So when employers come to us, we're able to build co-branded landing pages so that when an employer goes there or an employee goes there, they see their logos, the things that really apply to them and the messaging from their organization. And the employer has the opportunity to customize that education so that they see those things where they know their employees are really dealing with. So if it's dealing with bankruptcy or foreclosures or things like that, those are the classes that we would offer for them. We've also made it available for those folks who have smartphones, because from the feedback that we've gotten from the public is that they can't run to a computer and go take a 45 to 60-minute class. So they want to do things on the go. So we've made our curricula 3 to 5 minutes so that it's bite-sized chunks of information that they can use and get on their mobile phone devices, such as their iPhones or Androids or their Windows Surface tools. So changing that and utilizing technology to reach a new type of audience is something that we've leveraged really positively.
We found a good mix of things works for us. We have a workforce of just under 8,000 people that go across everything from police officers to grounds crew workers to people who are specialized engineering. And what we found was when we launched wonderful web tools and call centers and whatnot, they were great, but they really wanted to come talk to somebody. And so we have brought people back in terms of engagement as relates to financial education in particular. We do leverage co-branded websites with our vendors. We do certainly have phone options and online things that we create through our portal as well. But our highest demand, frankly, particularly for people who are at risk in terms of financial stress, is having someone sit across from them to talk to them, either in a lunch and learn setting or the opportunity to have a one-on-one. And so we recently have a new vendor for our 401A and 457 products. And their big pitch was their online space, which is wonderful. I mean, it's beautifully branded. I need people to come to every location and talk to the people who sign up to see them. And so I really recommend some blend of that. I think that sometimes we can undervalue the physical presence of a person, giving you comfort and confidence in the choices and information that you're receiving.
I mean, just to piggyback on that, I think I agree wholeheartedly with you. I've been with Southern Company only about 16 months. So I can even I think earlier somebody said something about the new employee experience. So I went through the new employee experience when I joined the company. I was just like, how are you ever, as a new employee, gaining things? Because every day you get pinged with new information. So one of the things we've kind of targeted is what's the new employee experience? So how do I deliver all that information to them? Also, one of the things we found was just with regard to a lot of the financial information, retirement was all over the board on the HR portal. So we were letting our vendors kind of drive how we communicated to our employees rather than us driving it. So now we've got a new initiative to create a retirement page on the portal, and we're also making it more life stage focused. So if I am a new employee that's under the age of 30, do I really care about learning about retiree medical right now? Probably not. I need to be focusing on savings and why do I save, or I'm going to buy a new car, thinking about buying a house. How does all that fit into the equation? So we're starting to create a life stage kind of concept. Going on what you've said, one of the things this past year, I've spent probably 3 days a week going to a lot of our locations and talking with employees. So listening to what employees are saying. And one of the things that was fascinating to me, because I came from the consulting world, so I was great at giving products out to companies. And I used to sit there and go, why isn't everybody really appreciating all these tools? And one of the things I found is people just, they want to hear it from somebody in our company. At the end of the day, I go there with our vendors. And at the end of the day, the feedback is, it's glad that you were here because I feel more comfortable asking you a question than the vendor, because the vendor's out to get my money. I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but that is the perception of our employees. They feel as a coworker of theirs that I am looking out for their best interest more so than a vendor. So we need to kind of make sure that we're kind of letting our employees know that it is a marriage, and even as for folks that are employers here, really that you have to kind of work together with your vendors, and you can't just hand it off. Because that's a key, and I think you were talking about that even with your umbrella policy. And that's what you kind of learned.
Exactly.
So it's very key. That was one of the big learnings we had.
And I think from a technology standpoint, as more and more people, as several of us have talked about, are going online to get their information, especially younger workers, we have moved into that arena. I mentioned the Social Security statement earlier, and we have launched what we call a My Social Security account, which is a personalized account that people can access their Social Security statement. So these are for folks before you become eligible for benefits, but once you become eligible for Social Security benefits, whether it be through retirement, survivors, or disability, then you can make certain changes to your accounts, find out what your benefits are, your direct deposit. Also on our website, I think an important tool that we offer is some of our retirement estimators and calculators, where you can go on there and the estimator where you can pull up your own benefits, do some scenarios of what your benefit might be based on what your earnings are going to be. And then under our calculator program, we also have a link to the American Savings Education Ballpark Estimate, which lets you plug in what you're going to get from your Social Security benefit along with other savings to figure out what your retirement earnings are going to be. So I know you hear, that some people like the face-to-face, some people like the online. We continue to offer all those options as far as our agency is concerned.
Another question for the panel as a whole. Are there some other opportunities out there that you've leveraged in the past to deliver financial education programs in the workplace, or anything that you've used to promote these activities with your employees?
Yeah, I think one of the things that was interesting to me is we use a lot of, at Southern Company, we have a lot of affinity groups. So women engineers, young professionals, accounting, you'd be surprised how many affinity groups there are in our organization. But by leveraging maybe the people who are the presidents of those groups, letting them know what programs we have available, then they as a group can kind of determine what their needs are for their particular interests. And so that way we can tailor the messages rather than doing these broad sweeping, we're here today to talk about this. This way, they can kind of ask us, can you come in and do a lunch and learn on this topic? And so then we can, and then we get even facilitate questions beforehand so that we are able to kind of deal with a lot of the things that they're thinking about. So we found that to be a very helpful way to infiltrate within our organization to have greater outreach to people.
We've targeted working with our unions. We have 4 unions we recognize in the city of Atlanta to target them in terms of what their membership is looking for. And we also looked at our demographics, and the city has a lot of high tenured employees. We created this road to retirement at our pension reform efforts, which really, frankly, has been very successful because people thought, oh, yes, one day I'm going to retire. And I worked in the private sector for a long time, and one of the companies I worked for used to say that you think retirement is a marathon, but it really is a sprint. Because one day you wake up and you haven't done anything, or you haven't done enough. Something happens to make you realize that. And so we try to capitalize on that perspective with the reform efforts and keep that conversation going. because it had not really been an active conversation where we were really engaged prior to the reform activities. And so we really work hard with that. We also get feedback from our employees. We have a very vocal population who will come in and tell us the 10 things we aren't doing they like to see us do. And so we do our best to respond to that as well.
I think we do some of the similar things. I think a lot of people like the face-to-face where when we can, we go out. If your company wants us to come out and do a pre-retirement seminar, you know, if folks are nearing retirement, we do that when we can. We also have some great webinars and videos on our website that we offer. And I think a lot of the focus today has been starting early. So sometimes we do outreach in the schools. I mean, you know, they may not be thinking about, you know, retirement, but what is Social Security? Normally their parents, their grandparents, somebody's getting it. We need to start early talking about the importance of Social Security and what role it does play. And then, you know, the social media. We've moved into mobile apps, having, you know, some of our information on a phone, a smartphone, you know. I think some of the studies that we hear, you know, 5 to 10 years from now, people aren't going to have a computer. They're going to do everything on their smartphone, you know. And so we're trying to keep up with that, as well as, you know, Facebook, putting some messages, trying to have a variety of communication to get the education that we feel we need out there about our programs.
And we did similar things that Patty's done from Facebook, Twitter, those types of things. But we've also utilized the location. So, you know, traditionally we go out into the community and teach education classes, and we do a lot of face-to-face. So that's why we're leveraging a lot of technology. One of the things that we've done is that in break rooms at different employers, they have television screens in there. So we've put different videos that we customize for them so they can get reminders of things that they should do, such as building that emergency fund and putting money towards retirement. Some of the other things that we've done, we've looked at the diversity of needs in the community. So here in Atlanta, we have a Hispanic Center for Excellence, which is for folks who aren't in crisis, but for those folks who want to make sure they're on track with retirement. So there's a location that they can go to and talk with one of our counselors in the language that they're comfortable with, and they can talk about retirement. We're also getting ready to launch another program called the Financial Blueprint, which is an advisory service, again, not for folks in crisis, because we handle the crisis piece very well. But we're looking at folks who are middle Americans that are also having trouble, that are making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year, and they're finding that they're not ready for retirement, and they maybe haven't even started. So we're trying to be there for them, and every month offer coaching services for them to make sure, do you have that emergency fund? Have you built some assets? Are you saving for retirement? So that when you turn a certain age, you're not shocked about it.
Yeah, and as far as delivering these programs to employers or your employees, I imagine it's gotten a bit more challenging given how much more diverse the workforce is, how much more we work from home or work remotely, and not just when it snows 2 inches do we work from home. There's a lot of telecommuting that goes on here in Atlanta. Maybe Michelle and Patty, you can start by talking about some of the programs that you've put together for employers that have taken that into account.
Well, I think it's important that, and we try to tailor our message to our audience. As we talked about today, there's a different group, whether we're talking about retirement or younger workers or schools. So we take into account who our audience is and tailor the message and the method, which is the best way to communicate to them. We look at a lot of different ethnic groups, you know, to tailor, because some of them come with different challenges or issues that we need to address. I know Yvonne has mentioned that the city of Atlanta is not covered under Social Security. So when you go out and talk to that group, you know, we need to address the issues that they have, whereas their employees are not going to be eligible for Social Security, but a lot of them may think they might be as a spouse of a worker or something. And unfortunately, it's not always a positive message when we deliver, you know, our rules about, you know, what your benefit will be. So we also do multi-language. You know, a lot of our communities, you know, we do presentations in Spanish and, you know, try to serve the needs of whatever community that we're reaching out to.
And many of the employers will contact us because of, you know, folks aren't utilizing their 401k, or they're taking too many loans out. They see a big jump in the population taking loans out from their 401k, and they want us to come out there and find out what are the problems. And so one particular group, I remember doing a series of classes for a construction company, and they called, and I was wondering, these folks make really good money, why are they calling? And I went out there and I wanted to know what the problem was. So after 4 weeks of going out there and inviting their spouses to come out, so you had the husband and the wife in the classroom, this was really good. And to find out that they were all, many of them, 80% of that class were living above their means. That was the bottom line. They were living above their means, they were carrying a lot of debt, and that's why they couldn't take advantage of their 401ks or why they were taking loans from their 401ks. So the employer didn't know. They just said, please come out and talk and solve this problem for me. But we had to find out what's the underlying issue, and that was the issue. And so then we could address, here are some things that you can do to resolve these situations.
About Bob and Yvonne, from your position as employers, how have you kind of taken this new workforce into account when you talk to your employees about their programs?
It'd be kind of interesting. I mean, it'd be interesting to see, because we're very similar, I guess, in nature of the way our organizations are. But one of the things that fascinated me was when I joined the company is our participation in our 401k plan is pretty high. And actually our average savings is well above even just to get the company match. So I was interested on why that was the case. And you would have thought, oh, well, because we're doing a good job of communicating, right? Like online and everything, getting enrollment and everything else. Actually, the best way was that when somebody started new, a coworker who was there said, you need to put, these 6% in to get that 85% match. That had more impact than us sending out and explaining things. Where we don't do a good job, though, in which we're trying to kind of figure out how to better, and we're partnering with our vendor, is because people don't have the educational knowledge. So once they decide to put that 6% in, how do I invest that money? So what we were finding was people were being very conservative in their investments, so that they weren't kind of building that long track. If you're only going to earn, money market, put everything in a money market, yeah, it's pretty safe, but you're not going to keep up with inflation, as you're going along. So there was where we realized that financial education was really important. So one of the things we've done is started working with somebody on providing, our 401k vendor is going to be providing advice to our employees, so that an employee can say, hey, I don't really know enough. How do I go out and do that? Kind of the Department of Labor is here, so I'm going to try. One of the hardest things is the fiduciary responsibilities of employers, and there needs to be a little bit more kind of a friendly, open hand policy, because as employers, we're restricted on really what we can tell employees to do. And so, a lot of times that hurts employees, because again, employees are looking to us. We can't give them the advice maybe that they need, because then we may be violating a fiduciary responsibility. They can come back and sue us. So there needs to be, and I was in Washington last week, so I've already talked to Mark and a couple other people at the Treasury but about this issue, but that's a lot of what employers are worried about.
So we have very similar populations. The majority of the city is in a defined benefit plan. So our issue there is that people assume if I just work long enough, I'll get a check. I mean, how big is the check? I don't know. Is it enough? Is the check enough? I'm not really sure. So we have a lot of issues around understanding what that very generous, well-funded benefit looks like when they come out. The other half are in the 401a plan. And again, we have a very high participation rate in that plan, in part because of the peer pressure. People think like there's a code that says they have to be in it. There must be a law. So everyone's in it. And it had nothing to do with our beautiful communication materials or the collateral. It was really because people felt like they were compelled. Do the same kind of enrollment in our healthcare. 98% of people are in our healthcare plans. So our real issue is, once they're in them, how do they make better choices? And we have the exact same challenge around giving advice. So we have really created and been insistent that we have product neutral advice, because we were not interested in being in the vendor business. Our vendors are really good at that. We had multiple platforms. We reduced to one platform, so you don't feel like you're being sold by 4 different companies. But at the end of the day, our employees, they go to the session and they say, well, Michelle, what are you going to do? Where's your money invested? I can't tell them because I'm advising them, and I don't want to advise people. So we walk that very fine line as well. But we've done that with a third party that's really targeted around product neutrality and talking about your long-term plan, because we do have employees who have other components like Social Security through a spouse, or maybe credits they earned at another employer. But we want to give them a financial plan, but we are very conscious and very thoughtful of how they get to that plan. We have the exact same issue, which is our people are engaged, they signed up, but their money will sit in cash. They will not make a choice. Even when they get pretty charts that say, how old are you? What stage of life are you in? Are you caring for others? They will still sit in that cash until they see a person, until they feel like there's someone who's giving them data that they can trust that's not a sales pitch.
Great. Kind of the last thing we'll talk about is employee assistance programs and how those have been either applied or maybe how we could take advantage of those in a better way. I think the director kind of alluded to this in his comments about how deep the recession was and how many people were so affected. And we saw this at the workplace. And the new word in my lexicon is presenteeism. That's going to happen to me when March Madness rolls around, I know. But it was in all seriousness, it was a huge problem for our employees in all places and at all levels. So maybe we can kind of just have an open discussion about those programs and how you've used them and maybe how we could use them better in the future. Maybe in the discussion, we've touched a little bit on technology and some other things that how would that look from a privacy aspect? Because these are very private matters for employees, and employers want to make sure that they're protecting their workers' privacy. So if you could think about that when we talk about the EAPs and what we might do going forward.
Yeah,
I'll just throw it out open.
Our EAP program is completely confidential. I mean, we use a third-party vendor. We stress confidentiality. And I think as the group earlier, we had a chat, and I think one of the biggest things, and even when I ask coworkers this, there's a stigma with calling EAP. That means you have a problem, and do you really feel comfortable? And so it's we're still always trying to figure out, is there a way that we can brand it differently? Maybe not call it an employee assistance program, call it, life coaching or something, figure out a new name for it, because it's unfortunately people and they also call EAP when it's probably at the worst point. You're already in crisis mode. There's a lot of things that you could be using EAP for, but they're not using it up until the point where, even when they take out a loan in the savings plan, it's to the point where they need the money tomorrow. It's not, if you had thought about a month ahead of time, obviously people don't go into financial distress overnight, I would say, on average. So why did you wait this long? And the reason is because they don't pick up the phone and call somebody. They don't want to talk to their coworkers about it. They want to kind of live, they don't want anybody to know their problems. And it's the same thing with health issues too. So we really need to kind of think about, alternative channels of delivery. Maybe targeted employee communications more. So we're really kind of trying to explore all of that. And, I love the idea, one of the things I'm going to take away is this whole idea of this is like financial wellness week or whatever you want to call it, because one of the things we're trying to do is, and I'd like to talk to Yvonne about it afterwards, is really trying to go away from, we spend a lot of money on wellness, on health wellness, because it helps monitor our costs, right? It controls those costs. We don't spend any energy on financial wellness with our employees. We don't have that campaign. And I think that's the direction we're trying to head for 2015, is to roll out that financial wellness attitude. Can you do a check? You do a biometrics check and everything else. I'm sure everybody here has had to do those with their employers. Why don't you do that on your financial side? If everybody did that once a year, maybe we wouldn't have as much, crisis mode situations. So that's kind of where we're headed.
We actually have an in-house EAP, which I thought was insane when I got to the city of Atlanta, but I must tell you, and I thought we should outsource that, but we did not. It's a wonderful program, and it's highly utilized. It's confidential. We have, I think, above, our usage rate is around 8% higher than the national average, which does not give me any comfort. And when you look at the data that I do get out of that organization around why people are coming to EAP, a lot of that utilization is about financial insecurity and about picking up new financial responsibilities, the risks that have taking place because their spouse is unemployed, or they have a dependent who was independent once who's come back, or whatever the issue happens to be. And so we actually, because of the uptick around the need, have put together a set of resources to help people find their help in that crisis. And so we have, tax counselors, we have credit counselors, we have all sorts of things. But to Bob's point, a lot of our people are coming in, their house is being auctioned off on the steps on Tuesday. They're coming to see us on Monday at 4 because they don't have any other recourse. And so EAP has been very helpful, but it's much more helpful when people are engaged, a month before that foreclosure takes place. Because we found great resources to assist our people through our partnerships, but it's getting them to that place in the time they need to be there.
I think just to put a little different spin on it from our perspective, it may not necessarily be a financial crisis. It could be loss of a husband, or a wife, or becoming disabled, or parents. We talked earlier about the sandwich generation, and you've got issues with your own parents that you're taking care of. So I think we could fit into that role by making sure you know what benefits and resources are available to you, and I encourage employers to look at that. We're just not retirement. It's the disability, the survivor protection, the aid for your parents, the Medicare assistance, those type things. So I think when you're looking at, providing that assistance during a crisis, that we all need to remember the role that Social Security fits in those circumstances as well.
And I totally agree. I think that we look at it more of as those life events happen, as different situations happen, that's the time to do a financial checkup. And if we can look at, having the savings account, the paid off house as the cool thing, that instead of, well, let me call EAP because I've got a problem, if it's the cool thing to do, then more people would probably get on board with it. And, we have to keep them visualizing the end picture. The end game is the less stress. I mean, how great would all of us feel if our retirement account was fully funded and we had a year of savings in the bank and we had our house paid off? I mean, how many would feel great about that? So that's the end game that we want. So that's what we want them to focus on. We want them there. And if they reach out, ahead of time and not when there's a crisis, then we can get there.
Yeah, so at the Atlanta Fed, we focus on educating educators in middle school, high school. And I'm struck by something you said, Phyllis, about how we should start earlier than that. So you start at elementary school, high school, workplace, and then it becomes a circle as the people, our employees, talk to their kids about it, and that just becomes really self-perpetuating. We're almost out of time. I just want to make sure that everybody on our panel had a chance to share what they had, their thoughts. If there's anything else you'd like to add, speak now or forever. No, well, thank you very much for your time. And everybody, please join me in thanking them.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you to the panelists for sharing with us your thoughts on how to leverage opportunities for financial education in the workplace. At this time, we would like to invite our second panel of the program to the stage, please. And to kick off our second panel, I would like to introduce Thomas E. Stokes III. Mr. Stokes is the Atlanta Region's Community Affairs Officer of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. He has served the FDIC for over 20 years. As Community Affairs Officer, Mr. Stokes directs the community development outreach that helps insured depository institutions meet community credit needs in the Atlanta region, which covers Alabama, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, and West Virginia. A more expansive bio of Mr. Stokes is available in the list of bios on the CVent registration page. I'll turn it over to you, Tom.
Good afternoon. We heard the first panel talk about opportunities, and now we're going to talk a little bit about how we can engage the employees in that opportunity. I'm joined here by Bill Cheeks, Mike Wiggins, and Robin Wehner. Bill is the CEO and president of ABBA Associates, which is a fiscal management consulting firm. Mike Wiggins is the executive vice president of human resources at Southwire. And Robin Wehner is the director of wealth building and financial empowerment for Step Up Savannah. Many people are overly confident about their financial knowledge. and may avoid addressing their personal finances. This panel is going to explore some successful strategies that employers and their partners have used in developing financial education programs for their employees. Let me begin with Mike. We do understand that in developing financial education and financial capability programs that you need to engage your senior leadership. Obviously, they're engaged with a lot of management issues, and I'm interested in how you were able to appeal to them to implement the programs that Southwire is engaged in.
The really short answer to that, we're a privately held company. About 10 days ago, we made a major acquisition and became the world's third largest wire and cable supplier, so we're pretty big in our business. But we're still privately held, family owned, and we operate the company that way. So on Friday, there's a staff meeting, and you can tell it's a fairly well accepted thing, because the joke in the whole company is that's the eaters, because the Friday staff meeting is around lunch with the executive management team, so that's the eaters. And when we talk about a benefit change, when we talk about a training change, when we talk about an acquisition, when we talk about the financial condition of the company, when we talk about anything that has to do with running the business, it happens on Friday. So senior management, executive management is intimately involved all the time. So yeah, it's sometimes a pretty good hassle to get what you want to do done, but it generally works and works well. I'm in the previous meeting and the get-together this before lunch. I'm sure a couple of people thought it was a little bit of a joke, but really wasn't. When we talk about benefits, when we talk about educational assistance to our people, when we talk about those kinds of things, we can do that in those Friday meetings. But we can buy a company a heck of a lot easier than we can solve those problems, because it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of discussion. I'm primarily here today to talk about something that we started in 2007, and it addresses a whole segment of the economy, a whole segment of the country that I am worried to death about. The introduction of me was almost right. I'm Executive Vice President Southwire, retired, sort of. And I'm about pushing 12 for Life, which is our initiative for at-risk kids to get a high school education. For as long as I'm healthy, and that's what I believe I'm on this planet to do. We kicked that effort off in 2007, and we started with the most at-risk kids, those that were 16 and older in school, those that were academically challenged, those that were socioeconomically disadvantaged, and those, and the fourth measure was attendance, but it's the opposite of what you might think. It was kids with poor attendance. Because I'll bet you, more than I care to lose, that anybody in this audience who employs people, the number one issue that you face every day is attendance. Well, that's double true with education. So we take the kids with poor attendance. We passed out the first checks. This is how we got to financial oomph and financial education. We passed out those first checks. And one kid was intensely studying the pay stub, check stub. And the then plant manager of 12 for Life, it's a standalone plant, by the way, staffed exclusively by at-risk kids, except for supervision. Every employee in there is an at-risk kid that meets the criteria I just described. And this kid was intensely studying, so the plant manager goes over and said, I don't know if it's even a boy or girl, doesn't matter. you got a problem with your check? And the kid said, Mr. Grooms, you said we were making $8 per hour, and I worked my 4-hour shift times 5 days. That's 20 hours, and 20 times 8 is 160, and I didn't get 160. Think about that a minute. We said, holy cow, how can it be that a person in our country can get to age 16 or more, be enrolled in public high school, and not have heard about or have no knowledge of, zero knowledge of income tax, of Social Security? So that day we made the decision that we had to do something with our kids. We started with 69 kids. Today we have 282 working in that facility. We opened our second facility in another Southwire plant in Florence, Alabama. We've got 10 or 12 similar models around the state of Georgia, and working with a partnership that we helped the state put together called Great Promise Partners, including, I just learned this morning, I'm a happy camper. I've been saying we had 25 kids at Atlanta City Hall. We got 32. That's cool. So we began to bring bankers in, to bring financial experts in, and make that a part of the curriculum. And we just want to keep ratcheting that up and ratcheting that up. I need to hush, but I'm pretty passionate, and we're going to do that, and we're going to do it across this country.
You should. Great.
Thank you, Mike. Robin and Bill, as service providers, you have the opportunity to actually engage with leaderships of companies. And I'm wondering what it is that you've experienced to actually achieve buy-in from that leadership when you go out to talk with them.
Sure. Well, first, I'd like to thank the FLEC Commission for inviting me to speak here today on this topic. Workplace-based financial education is really the most exciting part of my job, and I'm honored to be part of the conversation to further the field. And I'll start off with a brief overview of our work, just to provide a little bit of context. I work for Step Up Savannah, which is a nonprofit that is the poverty reduction initiative for the city of Savannah, Georgia. Formed in 2005 after the city had been struggling with a poverty rate of 22 to 25% for 30 years. We're a collaborative agency made up of local government, faith communities, social service providers, and leaders from our high poverty neighborhoods. Our primary role is to convene stakeholders, leverage resources, and to build capacity for our neighborhoods and our community partners. We focus on areas of wealth building, policy, and workforce development. So financial education has really always been a strategy of ours. And in 2008, we received a grant from the Ford Foundation to work with employers to offer an array of work supports, including benefit screening and on-site tax preparation. We were able to further this work in 2011 and 2012 with a grant from the FINRA Investor Education Foundation and the United Way Worldwide to provide workplace-based financial education. For this project, we partnered with Consumer Credit Counseling Service of Savannah to design and implement the project. So when I say we moving forward, it really is referring to Step Up Savannah and Consumer Credit Counseling Service as a partnership. We're now fortunate enough to continue to receive support from the FINRA Foundation to expand that initial project, and also, in addition to financial education at the workplace, incorporate on-site, one-on-one financial counseling and a community-based volunteer coaching program. So we're now in the fortunate situation to have been working with many of our employer partners for many years, but we're always looking for new ways to engage new partners. We work with employers from sectors like hospitality, warehousing, healthcare, manufacturing, and local government. And our primary target is employees, lower wage employees. There are some employers that we work with that kind of already have a culture of going out of their way to support their employees. However, there's many others that weren't even aware that they had lower wage workers until we were able to demonstrate that many of their employees qualified for SNAP and other public benefits. We've also held employer forums where we've highlighted specific employers that we thought were doing particularly innovative work in the way that they were supporting their workers. And these forums are extremely effective in encouraging other employers to incorporate financial education and other work supports at the workplace. Hearing from another employer, one of their peers, about how they've integrated it into the workplace is much more effective than us trying to convince them. So we've also found that in this economy, when employers may not be able to provide raises, they're always looking for other ways to support their employees and offer additional benefits. So where we could, we've incorporated other work supports, again, like benefit screening, into our financial education classes. And as Mr. Cordray said, many employers are already offering workplace health and wellness initiatives. So we've encouraged our partners to include financial wellness as part of these initiatives. We've also used local data and national research to inform our message to employers. For example, as was highlighted earlier, absenteeism occurs 5 times more often, and sick time usage is 2 times higher for financially stressed employees. A financially distressed employee spends up to 20 hours a month of work time dealing with personal financial problems. And locally, in Chatham County, where Savannah is located, 64% of our residents have subprime credit scores, and 41% of Savannah households are in asset poverty. Again, meaning that they don't have enough to live on for 3 months at the poverty level should they lose their income. So data like this has really helped employers to better understand their workforce, the challenges that their workforce is facing, and also to underscore the potential return on investment that workplace financial education can offer. So we also make sure to report back to employers what impact the classes had on their employees. We conduct pre and post tests, and a longer class series, we're able to even assess behavior changes. And we make sure to relate that back to the employer so they know, the bang that they're getting for their buck. The most important strategy, though, has really been to listen to each employer, and that's been echoed in the previous panel. We make a point to first understand the specific strengths, needs, and challenges of each workplace, and to tailor that education to best fit each particular workforce. So there are certain elements that we certainly ensure that all of our classes have. There really is no cookie cutter approach, and being flexible is really the key element.
Thanks, Rob.
I have worked with a number of employers. We had in a previous session a discussion, how do you deal with the employers who are contacting you? Unfortunately, we don't have enough employers contacting us about doing proactive type of work. That's why I'm so delighted with Mike here, what they are doing at Southwire, because we really need that type of engagement. I have worked with the City of Atlanta, and again, Mayor Reed, Commissioner Yancey brought me in to sit down with them, and then she also had her Director of Benefits there. And what we did was design a program around other things that they were doing. Cobb County, they are represented here. The county manager and I are personal friends, and I know a number of the employees in the county, and they had gone 3 years without a raise. And I had heard that they were having financial challenges. So when you get the county manager, the head of HR, the head of finance in the room, they know what's happening with their employees. They were having challenges with employees' wages being garnished and other types of financial issues taking funds out of their pension plans and anything that they could gain access to. So we said, let's develop a program. And my program that I have designed for them, I come in and talk to them, and as she shared, face-to-face, we've talked to over 1,000 Atlanta City employees face-to-face, over 1,000 out in Cobb County. And again, how do you spread the program? Initially, you get the buy-in at the top, but then when the directors down in the organization come in, just like in the city of Atlanta, I spent more days in the detention center over there than I wanted to, being locked up and all of that, because you go through a lot of security. But the head of the detention center said, I need this for my employees. And then they liked it so well that then they brought in the heads of detention centers for the entire metro area. It is, you know, passing along that type of information from different folks who are in a decision-making role. That's how it happens, and then the message gets out to other folks in the community. But one of the things I want to also hand off to credibility here, I don't do the individual counseling. I do the sessions, general sessions, but then I refer people to reputable agencies, because most employees, they don't know who should I call if I have a credit counseling problem. So they know about credibility, and so as she said, City of Savannah, they have that. So it's a comprehensive program that we're looking at, but most importantly, must have buy-in from the leadership.
Mike's going to straighten out this whole business with the ClearPoint and credibility, right? And I should also mention that the group in Savannah is a different group that, that deals with. But Mike, Bill and Robin have talked about partnering, and that employers don't have to go it alone. I'm wondering, you obviously, Southwire, when it went out to the communities, demonstrated its passion. Was the passion enough to get the partners into play, or were there other things that you had to do?
A lot of other things. Our partnership, first and foremost, is with Carroll County Schools. And when we decided, we didn't even know what to call it. We have always been a fairly philanthropic kind of company, and have given a lot of money to various community projects and education and so on over the years. And selfishly, though, as the county and others were asking for additional funds, we were struggling a bit with our own crisis, near crisis. We made the decision about 25 years ago, that maybe 30, that we would not hire any person for any job within Southwire that he or she did not have a high school education or a GED. And we did that to support education and to kick off some initiatives that we knew were about to impact us substantially, let alone everybody else. And we've held to that. And as we made acquisitions, as we grew by greenfield across the country, we implemented that program wherever we do business. Whether it's a service center with 6 employees in Seattle, which we have, or a manufacturing complex in Carrollton, Georgia with 2,000 employees, or wherever, we do that. But in the mid-90s, 95 or so in particular, we began to have some problems with an adequate applicant pool. By that time, we had implemented pre-employment testing, pre-employment screening, which we'd done for years. We just kept ratcheting that up as the need increased. And so we decided if we were going to continue to be able to grow in our hometown, our home community, we had to have an applicant pool to grow with. So we had to do, and the dropout rate was 35% in our county school system. So that became, if you wanted to look at it from a pure business perspective, from a pure selfish perspective, it was to get employees, which, by the way, created jobs or kept those jobs there where in our home community. But that relationship that we put together with Carroll County Schools, and other schools opted out, you know, it was recognized to be a very tough thing. And then our board and our 5 shareholders weighed in really, really heavily. One of our board members said, "Mike, are you telling me that the last person to touch our stuff before it goes on the shelf at Home Depot and all of those kind of retail markets is a flunking, at-risk high school kid?" And I said, "Yes, sir." "How are you finally gone nuts?" Zero quality problems. Zero. The kids get it. The kids are productive. The kids we pay $8 base salary, but they can make 50 cents based on attendance bonuses and 50 cents based on productivity, and better than 60%, approaching 65 now, earn both. And keep in mind, 100% of them are at risk. Today we serve 3 counties, 7 high schools, and we somehow manage that with the principals and the guidance counselors, and everybody has skin in the game. The high schools have to supply transportation. Many of our kids have no vehicle, so school buses run to 12 for Life and then pick them up at the end of the shift. We have an on-site presence with Carroll County Schools. I believe it's 3.3 FTEs full-time, and then we have about 10 or 12 part-time teachers because we do for 96 kids, we do the entire education piece at 12 for Life. We have a high school inside 12 for Life today. And as our efforts...
We got to model you and carry you across the country.
As our efforts, the country, I don't know if the country can stand it. But as we have sought to always find ways to bring higher levels of skills and to provide higher levels of skills to our kids, one of the things I'm most proud of, in another lifetime I was head of quality, and so I'm very passionate about quality of product and quality of service. So we built a lab inside the plant. On one end of this room, pretty good sized room, there's a chemistry lab, because many of these kids never dreamed that they could attempt chemistry. The other end of that lab is a Southwest Quality Lab. So yeah, the kids are the last to touch our stuff, but we got some plant managers nervous because these kids are serious, and they're able now to build statistical databases of the quality of our product, and it's just you ought to come to Carrollton.
Yeah, right.
You ought to come to Carrollton. It works. It's not without problems. One of my pet peeves is this word partnership that is a piece of this. People throw that word around all the time, don't have a clue what it means, if it's going to be a real partnership. Our 12 for Life board is about 50% Southwire, about 50% Carroll County School, not quite 50. We've now added one of the other counties. The principal of the high school, the only high school in that county, is a member of the board. We've just added the 3rd county in the first of this year. We'll give them a seat. But it's about 50-50 business and education. There's no chairman. Yeah, I probably could influence it pretty heavily. But we meet every 3 weeks. For several years, it was once a week. Then we moved it to once a month. Now we're back to once every 3 weeks. Seldom does a meeting occur that we don't tweak something for the benefit of our kids. And I got to say one more time, the value is incredible when you think about the fact that 100% of our kids are at risk. And by the way, the criteria was determined not by Southwire, but by the guidance counselors, graduation coaches, principals in the various high schools. And they're the ones who said, well, we said legally it's got to be a 16-year-old or more. Then academically challenged, we want the ones who are not going to graduate or probably won't graduate. Then socioeconomically disadvantaged. We've had kids who had no home, slept in a car, and I can tell stories the rest of the afternoon that would, if you got a heart, it would move it. So they developed this rubric for determining the pool from which we would select students. And it works. If you walk in our plant, it probably, I haven't counted recently, but it's probably a little bit more female than male. It reflects just about like the community in terms of diversity and things of that nature. It's a pretty doggone good mirror image of it. But it was not done for that reason. It was done for the people that met the criteria, which tells you that it's about like the community, just about like the community. Partnerships are real. Whatever you do, whatever you need to do, whether it's something like this or something better, you have to hurry if it's going to be better. But if you do, you select your partners very carefully. Very, very carefully. Was it difficult? I told, this is not a joke either, John Zahner, who, those of you who are in education know that he's the head of the State Superintendents Association. He was county superintendent when we started the effort. I forgot as some of these heavy-duty meetings were going on and our noses were about this far apart, and then I remembered he was former Secret Service. And realized he probably could kill me 8 ways that I might not even know. Yeah, it's tough, but it is rewarding. Teachers are lined up to come to 12 for Life. We incent teachers, the schools can't. Southwire pays that. We incent the students. I didn't know that summer school costs money. So if you're an at-risk kid and you get just a little bit behind, that vicious downward spiral keeps getting faster and faster. So we do summer school, and if one of our kids, we had 197 offerings at summer school this past summer, and Southwire pays tuition if you pass. If you flunk, payroll deduction. We pay teachers based on their success, and this is not some kind of gimme thing, but we have tutors for the end of course, for the graduation, for specific course work, and then we very carefully select the teachers who tutor these students. The best example I can give you of that, we had a young lady, a very young lady, teacher, and we heard about her and we said, how about come to 12 for Life? And she did, and she had 35 students in preparation for the end of course test. 31 of them passed. Southwire paid her $300 times 31.
Oh, wow.
Think about it, and that was about a 30-day effort, or maybe 35. So think about what percentage of a teacher, a high school teacher, made in 30 some odd days. We got teachers lined up, good ones. Partnerships are critical.
Thank you.
Partnerships are critical.
Robin, with respect to partnerships, can you give some of the best practices in terms of engaging the employees once you've actually worked with an employer? what things work best, what things may not have worked, where you ran into those challenges.
Okay. Well, I would say, first of all, it really helps to have an engaging teacher. We are really fortunate that our lead instructor, Richard, who's in the room, is an amazing instructor. Financial education can be really dry and has some intimidating jargon. And so, your instructors need to be able to boil that down into an easy to understand and fun learning environment. And I would say, again, that listening to the employer was key, or the employers. We thought it was really important to find out if they were seeing trends amongst their employees' financial struggles, and to make sure that we understood the culture of the workplace and what tools or programs were already in place to support employees. For example, if we heard from an employer that they were noticing a large volume of collection calls or had a very low participation in their retirement plans, we made sure to incorporate pieces of education around that into our classes. So we quickly learned to be very flexible with the way we taught the classes. For example, on the one hand, we worked with the city of Savannah as an employer, and they really embraced workplace financial education. They committed to having us come in and teach a 3-part series of classes that were held monthly for 3 hours. These classes were part of their professional development training calendar, and employees were given time on the clock to take the classes. The city also provided a graduation lunch for those graduates that completed all 3 classes, and and really just allowed the employees to dedicate a lot of time as part of the professional development of those employees towards financial education. So on the other hand, we also worked with the IKEA distribution center. We are in the position in Savannah where we don't have an actual IKEA. We just it goes right through our city. But we worked with a distribution center where we had actually much less time to work with employees. Our contact there really felt strongly about getting financial education to her employees, but wasn't able to provide on-the-clock time for that to happen. So we decided to offer the classes during their 30-minute lunch break and provide food as an incentive. We broke up our typical credit class into 3 30-minute chunks that were offered once a week for 3 weeks. So though 30 minutes isn't an ideal teaching scenario, it did work for those employees, and the data that we are able to provide the employer will hopefully encourage them to further their investment in financial education. And it also serves as a nice introduction to the services that CCCS offers, like budget counseling, credit counseling, foreclosure prevention. So even a small chunk of financial education can really lead to accessing additional services that they need. So it's definitely ideal if an employer is willing to incorporate the classes into the workday and pay employees to attend, but you can definitely make it work in other ways if they can't. Not surprisingly, as far as challenges, we did find that classes that we tried to hold before or after a shift, where employees were expected to come in early or off the clock, weren't really well attended. And food was definitely the most successful incentive beyond kind of paid work time. We purposely designed our classes so that they would be as action-oriented as possible. We wanted to allow participants to be able to practice applying their new knowledge right in class whenever possible. We tried to incorporate concepts from behavioral economics to make it as easy as possible on employees to immediately take action on some of the behavior changes that we were encouraging. For example, in our credit classes, the first part of the class was dedicated to the concepts of understanding credit and credit reports. And then the second part of the class, we had reserved for their participants to pull their own credit reports, practice reading them, and finding errors. Everyone in our budgeting class leaves with a written budget and written financial goals. We incorporate benefit screening into the budgeting classes as well as a way to uncover additional income. In another class focused on wealth building strategies, we brought in the city's credit union partner, retirement plan provider, and a homeownership program representative. Employees were able to sign up for accounts right in class or change their direct deposit forms so that they could put more of their paycheck into savings. They were also able to sign up immediately for their retirement plan or to increase their contribution, all before leaving class. We know that life gets in the way of even our best intentions with our finances, so we tried to capitalize on translating people's excitement in the class into action before they kind of got out of our clutches. So we surveyed City of Savannah class graduates to assess behavior changes and found that 25% had changed their direct deposit arrangement so that some of their paycheck was now going into savings. 25% either signed up for the city-sponsored retirement plan or increased their contribution to it. 38% started contributing to an emergency savings fund, and 34% had corrected errors on their credit reports. So it's gratifying to see the impact that the classes were having, and we made sure to share that data with the city and have also used this data to further engage other employer partners. Lastly, another way that we engaged employees was by incorporating polling technology into the classes. This served twofold, both as an interactive teaching tool and as a way to capture data about our participants and their knowledge gain. We did pre- and post-tests with the polling technology and also incorporated what we called curiosity questions. These questions might be, have you pulled your credit report in the last 12 months? How do you feel about how you manage your money? Do your expenses outweigh your income? So answers were captured in real time and displayed on the screen anonymously, and it enabled the class to see that their coworkers were going through some of the same financial challenges as they were, and it really helped to create an atmosphere of camaraderie in the classes and encourage more participation. So we really found that the most effective classes really were those that the employees were kind of teaching each other what had worked for them and what hadn't worked for them.
Thanks, Rob. In our last few minutes, Bill, let me ask you, with respect to financial topics, are there any particular incentives or strategies that you use to engage employees in what would normally be considered staid or boring subjects?
Yes, most subjects around this initially to people are boring, but you really can make it very engaging when you make it personal. And that's one of the things that I do. I have great time all of the time when I'm presenting. But one of the things I wanted to just mention before, how do you make it personal? When people are coming into the session, I walk around. Why are you here? Why did you come? So that you can tailor your presentation to them and then speak to specific things they have mentioned to you as they come into the session. And I like to pick on the ladies because I know they like to shop, especially when I'm talking about budgeting and credit and the use of the credit cards. Not the credit cards are bad, but how do you use them wisely and tie that into credit scores and talk about successes and how people have acquired successes as far as their financial life. Now, again, how do you incent folks? I want to say to all employers here, food. When they come in and you have food, I know Cobb County, every time sometimes they didn't have food, and so the employees would wonder, what, they're getting cheap on us, aren't they? They're not providing food. The City of Atlanta always had food for the employees and everything, so it really works out well. But in closing out this, it is so important to have good partnerships to refer the employees to for resources, because they don't know about many times who is a reputable credit counseling agency. They've never heard of a company such as eCredible, where alternative credit report so that they can manage their credit report. And get alternative data included in the credit report. And then also I do webinars. Employers who don't want to give their employees the time, we do work for a benefits company, and we provide webinars that employees can access on their own time or do it during the workplace. So those are some of the things that we're doing. And I just want to close and thank Mr. Cordray, Ms. Borsey, Ms. Quixote, I guess that's how, I've heard different things. Thank you all for coming to Atlanta and working with us, because this is really great, and as you can tell, something I'm passionate about.
Please join me in thanking our panelists.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you to all the panelists for sharing with us your thoughts on how to effectively engage employees through financial education. We would like to give a special thanks to Bill Cheeks for his invaluable contributions to promoting financial literacy. At this time, we would like to open the floor for public comment, so you in the audience can share with us your thoughts on today's discussion. If you had requested to provide public comment, you will be given, or you would have been given, a card with a number on it. So we're going to go in order, but I'm going to kind of jump the order to start. So when I announce you, could you please introduce yourself and your organization for comment? So we'll start with number 4.
Thank you. I'm Judith Cohart, Personal Finance, Bright Education Foundation. I just taught high school. I have a pretty loud voice. And I didn't realize, and I was very pleased today, that so much time was spent on financial education in the workplace beyond putting money into the 401k, because unfortunately there's still too many employers in this country who, when they provide financial education, focus on the 401k, forgetting that there are a lot of people who need help because, as was discussed today, they're in financial distress. We found with research we've done, about a third of employees have that problem. And as was referenced earlier, the study that we did in 2012 found that as a result of the financial crisis, the number of people even getting by was reduced significantly. So that it was only 42%, or it was 42%, and those people had been in the upper, doing really well before. So again, I just wanted to thank you for focusing on financial education in the workplace and looking at the whole panoply of needs that people have in finances.
Do you mind just repeating your name and your organization, please?
Oh, sure. Judith Cohart, and I'm with the Personal Finance Employee Education Foundation. And thank you. I have a plane to catch, so thank you.
Thank you. As number 2, still here?
Brent Neiser, National Endowment for Financial Education, Denver, Colorado. Imagine, if you will, workplace education where the people that go into it are unemployed at least 3 months a year. This is the case in the building and construction trades. And our foundation in 2005 provided a grant to Port Jobs, a Seattle-based kind of life skills organization that provides financial education married to apprentice training in the building and construction trades. Since 2005, 2,000 people have gone through this. It's direct, relevant, and timely financial education where credit counselors are on staff with the classroom experience as these young men and women who are answering their country's call to rebuild America's infrastructure, to upgrade buildings for energy security and safety. So think about those folks that are putting their lives on the line and their economic volatility in their personal finance reflecting the volatility of our economy. They need financial education, and Port Jobs is working. For more information, you can contact me at the National Endowment for Financial Education or financialmentoring.net. Thanks.
Thank you. Is number 1 still here?
I'm Mary Jones. I work for Unum, a major provider of employee benefits and the nation's largest provider of employee-sponsored disability insurance. We applaud FLEC for sponsoring this important forum. We found that workers typically underestimate the risk of losing their ability to work due to illness or injury, overestimate how much support they would receive from government programs, and few have savings to withstand loss of income. Private disability insurance companies like Unum help address this financial vulnerability by providing continued income and rehabilitation assistance. Our policies, when offered through the workplace, are very affordable, about $300 per year. Unfortunately, only 1/3 of the workforce has access to employer-sponsored disability insurance. We found that the biggest impediment to more employers offering the benefit is lack of information about disability risk and misconceptions about the cost. We have ideas on how to change this, including a government-sponsored disability risk information clearinghouse similar to the one established for long-term care. We also believe that it would be beneficial for the Department of Labor to clarify the permissibility of auto-enrollment for disability insurance, consistent with the recommendations of the ERISA Advisory Council. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Number 3, please. Number 5.
Good afternoon. I'm Vicki Elisa. I am with Mothers Voices. I'm a community educator for a group called Wiser out of Washington, D.C. In 1990, I was $30,000 in debt. I was a college graduate, and it took me 3 jobs to get out of that debt. And this information that I've heard today wasn't here. As a result of that, I reached out to a group called Wiser out of Washington, D.C., and we created a workshop called Smart Women and Money. And we've taken that workshop, it's been honored by Red Book Magazine, by FINRA, but it reaches out to low-income women with real-life world issues dealing with their finances. And there are 3 things that I hope comes out of this effort as we move forward to educate women. 1, I love the concept that not all financial education will fit. One model won't fit everyone. It's like a pair of pantyhose. As we women know, one size does not fit all. The other piece that I really hope will resonate as you take this back to Washington, D.C., is the fact that for financial education, the theories don't work. It needs to be in plain, user-friendly language that women can understand. And finally, I truly believe that the education needs to be gender-based. For women, we have issues that impact us economically that we need to have a safe place to talk about those issues. So I see some friendly faces. I've worked with Assistant Secretary Borzai at Spelman College doing a financial literacy outreach. So I really appreciate the effort that happened today. And then finally, directing women to resources such as the National Resource Center on Women and Retirement Planning Issues, which is hosted by the Office of Aging, has been a great resource for us. So I really commend the work. I'm excited about partnering with many of the organizations represented here in this room, and I hope to hear some good things happening in 2015 when we begin to launch this out nationally.
Thank you. It's number 6.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Harrison. I'm the founder of Emerge Financial Wellness. We're a Nashville-based social business providing workplace financial wellness programs in partnership with more than 200 employers throughout the U.S. Our focus is on the 60% of employees who live paycheck to paycheck, and they are stressed. They're bringing stress to work. More distraction equals more workplace accidents, higher workman's comp claims, and sick time usage, and it's directly affecting our clients' bottom line. Our own research has shown that a severely financially stressed employee is spending an average of 15 hours of work time a month dealing with personal financial problems. This is their words, not ours. However, today, only about 6% of employers have a financial wellness program in their workplace. So workplace financial wellness makes sense. Since money is the #1 stressor in our lives, regardless of income, financial wellness gets to the root cause of an unhealthy workforce. So we encourage employers to add a financial wellness program as an employee benefit. with access to socially responsible credit building financial products to meet workers where they're at so they can help employees become better stewards of their paycheck, build credit scores, and become savers for short-term emergencies and for retirement. Thanks.
Number 7. Number 8. All right. Thank you for everyone for your public comment. On behalf of the Financial Literacy and Education Commission Early Career Committee, I want to thank Director Cordray, Deputy Assistant Secretary Coide, and Assistant Secretary Borzi for their support of our focus on starting early. On behalf of the 22 FLEC member agencies, I would like to thank our speakers, moderators, and panelists for their participation today. And finally, on behalf of the FLEC, I would like to thank each of you for your participation today and remind everyone of the resources table that's directly outside the meeting room. And as a final reminder, the archive of today's webcast will be available on the CFPB's website. Thank you all and have a pleasant evening.